The story begins by introducing a cheerful girl named Sapile. She is known for her strength and loyalty, always ready to defend her friends. Often, Sapile finds herself in fights with girls from other schools who mess with her friends. One day, as Sapile and her friends are returning from school, they see a couple at a cafe. The young man, Dae-hyun, is very attractive but looks sad. Apparently, he has just broken up with his girlfriend because she found him careless during their dates. At that moment, Dae-hyun isn't concerned about looking neat. He's focused on rescuing a cat that's stuck in a drain. As Dae-hyun finishes helping the cat, Sapile and her friends approach him. She asks him to buy her some cigarettes, but he refuses. Not stopping there, Dae-hyun also scolds them, reminding them to act like responsible high school students. Shockingly, Sapile feels an instant attraction to him. She even steals a kiss from Dae-hyun when he is a bit tipsy and asks for his phone number, determined to get closer to him. 3 years pass, and Sapile is forced to leave school to work and support her younger sister, Eunbile. Since their parents passed away, Sapile has been the sole guardian, looking after her rebellious sister and often dealing with troublesome student gangs. Meanwhile, Dae-hyun has opened his own convenience store franchise. His good looks make him popular among high school students, who often ask him for photos more than they actually shop. However, this popularity becomes tiring for Dae-hyun. As time goes on, Dae-hyun's father, Young-pil, becomes exhausted from working at the store and is hospitalized. Dae-hyun then seeks help from his older sister, Da-soon, but she declines due to her family responsibilities. Fortunately, Dae-hyun's mother, Boonhee, pitches in when she can, despite her busy job as an insurance agent. Despite this, the store struggles, often closing randomly and missing inventory, which frustrates Dae-hyun. Not only that, with his mother unable to help daily, Dae-hyun becomes even more exhausted and decides to hire part-time workers. Surprisingly, one of the applicants is Sapile. Realizing this, Dae-hyun is stunned, recalling their past encounter and the unexpected kiss from 3 years ago. At first, Dae-hyun tries to discourage Sapile by setting tough conditions, but she agrees to the low pay and late-night shifts without complaint. Soon after, Dae-hyun falls asleep during his shift, and when he wakes up, he sees Sapile happily assisting customers. Her charm wins over the customers, so Dae-hyun decides to hire her as an intern for 3 months, with a chance of a permanent position if she excels. Unexpectedly, Sapile quickly masters the job, learning to operate the cash register and remembering item names and prices with ease. One day, Dae-hyun notices that some cash is missing from the register. After checking the CCTV footage, he suspects Sapile since he couldn't reach her by phone. Frustrated, he goes to find her, but ends up mistakenly entering the wrong apartment, leading to a misunderstanding with the police. Eventually, he discovers that Sapile is already at the store, arranging the shelves. When Dae-hyun returns to the store, he finds it locked, which makes him even more anxious. Later, the police arrive to investigate the missing money, suspecting Sapile of theft. Hearing this, Sapile is hurt by Dae-hyun's lack of trust in her. As it turns out, Dae-hyun's mother, Boonhee, had actually asked Sapile to take the money for an unexpected reason. After work, Sapile notices her sister, Eunbile, spending time with her friends at a karaoke place. At the same time, Dae-hyun, wanting to apologize to Sapile, goes to her house, but she isn't there. On the other hand, Dae-hyun has a best friend named Dal-shik, who dreams of being South Korea's top comic book writer. He mainly writes romantic stories under a pen name and lives in a small store across from Dae-hyun's supermarket. The next day, Dae-hyun talks to Dal-shik about his new part-time worker, Sapile, and admits he's unsure if she will stay. Surprisingly, Sapile chooses to continue working, even though Dae-hyun watches her closely. At the same time, Dae-hyun has a girlfriend, Yeonju, who works at the main office of the supermarket chain. They used to work together before Dae-hyun opened his store. Later, when Dae-hyun is exercising with Yeonju, Dal-shik calls him, saying Sapile and her friends are drinking outside the supermarket. As a result, Dae-hyun quickly returns and asks Sapile to take her friends home, but her friends challenge him to drink with them. This leads to both Sapile and Dae-hyun getting very drunk. Later, Sapile helps Dae-hyun rest in the store's storage room, At that moment, she's thrilled to be close to him, but Dae-hyun, half asleep, mentions Yeonju's name. At the same time, Yeonju, not expecting Dae-hyun to leave her so suddenly, decides to spend time with her younger friends. The next morning, Saebail's friend, Gumbi, arrives late to school but receives special treatment from the principal because her family is influential. Meanwhile, Dae-hyun wakes up and notices Saebail working overtime. When he checks the store's sales, he started to suspect that Saebail's friends didn't pay for their drinks. Later that day, Yeonju invites Dae-hyun to dinner. To avoid making her jealous, he lies, saying he was just drinking with a part-time worker the night before. However, Yeonju suggests firing the worker, thinking she's causing trouble. With no other option, Dae-hyun agrees to avoid conflict. It was revealed that Yeonju comes from a wealthy family and lives with her mother, Hae-ja, a stark contrast to Dae-hyun's simpler family. His father often lacks stable work, leading to frequent arguments with his mother. Later, when Dae-hyun returns from his date, he finds the supermarket full of customers. As a result, he immediately asks Saebail about the previous night and learns he misunderstood that her friends did pay for their drinks. Even so, he reminds her not to invite friends to drink while working. After reconsidering, Dae-hyun tells Yeonju he won't fire Saebail, as it was all a misunderstanding. Secretly, Yeonju feels unhappy, believing Saebail is a bad influence on Dae-hyun. One day, 3 young men come into Dae-hyun's store, and one of them tries to steal something. Furious, Saebail asks Gumbi to keep an eye on the store and chases after them. Moments later, she catches the thief, handling the situation firmly. At the same time, Dal-shik watches from a distance, recording Saebail's brave actions as she confronts the troublemakers. Unexpectedly, Yeonju soon arrives at the supermarket in disguise, wanting to see the part-time worker that her boyfriend, Dae-hyun, hired. When she spots Gumbi, who looks quite average and not very striking, Yeonju feels relieved, thinking this must be the worker everyone talked about. Eventually, she calls Dae-hyun, saying she understands why he didn't fire the part-timer. A few days later, Saebail fills in for Dae-hyun at the supermarket while he attends a reunion with his former colleagues. At first, everything goes smoothly, but during the reunion, Dae-hyun overhears a conversation between Yeonju's family and a man named Director Sung-joon, who is actually the head of the corporate office for the franchise. At that moment, Director Sung-joon is seen giving Yeonju's father, Myung-ki, a gift, and to Dae-hyun's surprise, it's the same shirt he once gave to Yeonju. This makes Dae-hyun realize that Yeonju has never introduced him seriously to her family. Meanwhile, Saebail and her sister Eun-bail remember their father on his death anniversary. During this time, Saebail fondly recalls her days practicing jujitsu with him. Later, though disappointed, Dae-hyun asks Yeonju about her family celebration. At first, Yeonju avoids the topic, but eventually admits she spent it with director Sung-joon, who has been a family friend since childhood. Instead of getting angry, Dae-hyun tries to understand, and he invites her to one of his favorite bars. Coincidentally, Saebail is also at the same bar with her friends, a group of tough girls. These girls start to pressure Eun-bail to act like a troublemaker to make money. In the bar where Dae-hyun and Saebail are, the bully girls show up. When Yeonju goes to the restroom, she accidentally bumps into one of them, sparking trouble. The bullies even follow her into the restroom, clearly looking for a fight. During this time, Saebail, who also needing to use the restroom, is told to go elsewhere by the bullies. However, she senses something is wrong and gets into a confrontation with the girls. At the same time, Yeonju tries to call Dae-hyun for help. Moments later, Dae-hyun arrives and surprised to see Saebail with Yeonju together in a sticky situation. However, when Yeonju realizes Saebail is the part-time worker, she pretends not to know that she had saved her. Dae-hyun then scolds Saebail for being at the bar during work hours, and Yeonju, who doesn't like her, insists Dae-hyun should fire her. Apologizing, Dae-hyun quickly reassures Yeonju and takes her away from the uncomfortable situation. The next day, Saebail notices a young man watching her work. To her surprise, it's her childhood friend Ji-wook. Apparently, they share a close bond, as Saebail's dad once taught him jujitsu. Meanwhile, Daehyun is seen checking on sales records and realizes they're lower when Satebail isn't working. During this time, Dalshik also shows Daehyun a video of Satebail handling 3 troublemakers with ease. On the other hand, Yeonju is seen feeling down at works, but she soon regains her spirit after Daehyun calls, saying he plans to fire Satebail. The following day, Satebail chats with her friends in a group chat, and the conversation shifts to a popular webtoon artist named Jiwook. At that moment, Gumbi, as a fan, is excited to learn that Jiwook is Satebail's friend. However, Satebail, embarrassed, recalls meeting Jiwook the previous night after drinking. On the other hand, Jiwook is about to become the brand ambassador for a company led by director Sung-joon. At the same time, Satebail has the day off and decides to relax. Later, she receives a call from the supermarket's field manager, inviting her to headquarters. She initially declines, but upon hearing about double pay, she quickly changes her mind. Satebail then heads to the supermarket's headquarters after winning an award for her excellent sales promotion work. To her surprise, she bumps into Yeonju there, discovering that Yeonju is actually the head of public relations for the company. While waiting for the elevator, Satebail accidentally runs into Yeonju again, and just then, Daehyun calls her, which makes Yeonju feel jealous. Later, Satebail is invited to join the company executives for a meal, but she politely declines, explaining that she needs to get back to work at the supermarket. She also shares that her job there isn't just about earning money. She truly enjoys working at the store. Back at the supermarket, Daehyun is surprised when the 3 troublemakers from the previous day show up to apologize. They admit their mistake and explain that Satebail didn't cause any issues. Instead, she helped them realize the importance of being honest. Shortly after, Gumbi and Eunjo, Satebail's friends, arrive at the supermarket to talk to Daehyun. They immediately inform him that the day before was the anniversary of Satebail's father's death, and they had taken her to the bar to lift her spirits. However, while trying to help Yeonju, Satebail was wrongly accused of bothering her. To make matters worse, Yeonju didn't even thank her for stepping in. As they leave, Gumbi unexpectedly crosses paths with Dalshik, her longtime rival. Meanwhile, Yeonju is seen exercising with director Sung-joon. At that moment, Daehyun suddenly arrives, hoping to clarify what really happened in the restroom incident. Yeonju tries to convince him to let it go. However, her mother, Haeja, catches a glimpse of Daehyun and Yeonju together, growing curious. In a panic, Yeonju urges Daehyun to hide, not wanting her mother to become suspicious of their relationship. Later, Daehyun receives a call from the police, informing him that Satebail has been arrested after a fight with a man. When he reaches the station, Daehyun passionately defends Satebail, explaining that the man had previously harassed her. The CCTV footage also confirms Daehyun's words, and Satebail feels relieved and grateful that he believes and cares about her. As time goes on, Daehyun's family is thrilled because Satebail's dedication has greatly boosted the supermarket sales. That night, Daehyun goes to the store and removes the part-time job posting, planning to offer Satebail a full-time position. Just then, Yeonju arrives and sees Daehyun celebrating with Satebail in a friendly way, making it look like they're closely. Seeing her, Daehyun and Satebail quickly explain that they were just celebrating her success as the top employee. Not long after, Yeonju invites Daehyun to dinner, but there's no one available to watch the store. Fortunately, Dalshik shows up and agrees to keep an eye on things, allowing the 3 of them to go to a nice restaurant. During dinner, Yeonju congratulates Satebail on her achievements, advising her to keep focusing on her job. Satebail, however, feels hurt that Yeonju still hasn't thanked her or apologized for the restroom incident. Later, Daehyun receives a call from a distributor about product deliveries, which embarrasses Yeonju as he seems out of place in the elegant setting. At the same time, director Sung-joon notices the situation and kindly offers to take Yeonju home, which she accepts, leaving Daehyun feeling slightly jealous. After dinner, Satebail and Daehyun hurry back to the supermarket to meet a distributor's truck that's waiting for them. Meanwhile, Eunbail has secretly become friends with a group of tough girls, unknown to Satebail. Later that night, Daehyun has trouble sleeping, feeling uneasy because Yeonju hasn't replied to his messages. He worries that the evening's events have made her upset with him. The next day, Daehyun met with director Chogum, who had come to interview Sae-byeol. At that moment, Daehyun proudly introduced himself as the manager and owner of the supermarket. The interview began warmly, with Daehyun's family welcoming everyone and setting a friendly atmosphere. As the interview progressed, Sae-byeol answered questions about what working at the supermarket meant to her, expressing her dedication. The session ended with a photo shoot, where Daehyun's family and Sae-byeol posed together, and one of the reporters assured Daehyun that the photos would only be used within the company. Later, Daehyun playfully asked Sae-byeol if she had any male friends, where she revealed that she knew a celebrity named Ji-wook, but Daehyun, a bit skeptical, challenged her to prove it by bringing Ji-wook to the supermarket that night. Just then, Sae-byeol got a message from Gumbi, saying that Eun-byeol hadn't shown up at school. That morning, Sae-byeol had seen Eun-byeol leaving for school as usual. But Gumbi had found out that Eun-byeol was auditioning for a singing competition at an idol agency and had even advanced to the next round. Knowing this, Sae-byeol tracked her down at the audition location, surprising Eun-byeol, and a playful chase led them to a nearby school. There, Eun-byeol shared her excitement about passing the audition. However, Sae-byeol felt a bit of emotion, remembering the difficult times after their father's death when she had to drop out of high school to support Eun-byeol, eventually moving out from a relative's home to take care of her sister on her own. Meanwhile, Ji-wook is seen finished his shooting and noticed he had missed calls from Sae-byeol. As a result, he quickly let her know that he'd come to the supermarket, where Daehyun, a fan of Ji-wook, felt a bit starstruck. During the visit, Ji-wook learned about Sae-byeol's struggles and her responsibility for Eun-byeol after their father's tragic accident. Later, Daehyun's family joined Ji-wook for dinner, and soon after, Sae-byeol's interview was published on the supermarket's website, featuring a friendly photo of her and Daehyun looking closely. Daehyun's friends soon informed him that everyone at the central office had seen the article, sparking rumors about his relationship with Sae-byeol. Concerned, Daehyun decided to talk to Yeonju to clear up any misunderstandings. However, by the time he arrived at the restaurant, Yeonju had already left with Sung-joon. Determined, he went to her house, but his heart sank as he saw Yeonju with Sung-joon, clearly enjoying their time together. Because of this, Daehyun began to wonder if Yeonju wanted to experience happiness with someone else. Meanwhile, the bully girls tracked down Sae-byeol at the supermarket, sneaking up and attacking her from behind as revenge. Sae-byeol collapsed, losing consciousness from the blow. After the attack, the girls quickly fled, but Daehyun crossed paths with them outside, finding their behavior suspicious. Concerned, he rushed to find Sae-byeol lying on the ground, trying desperately to wake her. Slowly, Sae-byeol regained consciousness, recalling the attack and feeling sharp pain in her abdomen. Moments later, at the hospital, the doctor diagnosed her with appendicitis and recommended immediate surgery. Knowing this, Daehyun informed his mother about Sae-byeol's condition, before returning to the supermarket to review the CCTV footage with the police. Thankfully, Sae-byeol's surgery went well, and Daehyun stayed by her side during her recovery. Despite her worries about the store, Daehyun reassured her to focus on healing. He also promised to pay her double for her time in the hospital and cover all her medical expenses, knowing the accident had happened while she was on the job. At the supermarket, Da-soon and her husband were caught sneaking items into a suitcase without paying. At the same time, when Sae-byeol was still in the hospital, she received a call from Gumbi, who told her that Eun-byeol would be competing in the third round of auditions the following day. Meanwhile, Dal-shik decided to take a break from his comic work and visit his favorite arcade. To his surprise, he ran into Gumbi there, and he was a bit annoyed to find out she had beaten his high score. Later, Dal-shik went to the supermarket to cover Daehyun's shift, as he had other things to handle. While there, Dal-shik shared with Gumbi and Eun-jo that Sae-byeol was actually in the hospital. Worried about her, they quickly went to visit her. On the other hand, Daehyun is seen headed to the central office, hoping to speak with Yeonju. However, she chose to leave with director Sung-joon, leaving Daehyun feeling uneasy. He then returned to the hospital, surprised to learn that Sae-byeol had been moved to a VIP room. Apparently, Gumbi had arranged this upgrade to ensure Satebail was comfortable and well taken care of. Elsewhere, Yeonju and director Sung-joon attended a wedding on a cruise ship. During the party, director Sung-joon hugged Yeonju and suggested she break up with Dae-hyun to avoid further complications. However, Yeonju declined, insisting that she saw director Sung-joon as just a friend. Back at the hospital, Ji-wook visited Satebail, bringing her a large bouquet of flowers. During this time, Boonhee also came by and gently helped Satebail fix her hair. As a result, Satebail was deeply touched, feeling the warmth of motherly care that she hadn't experienced in a long time. On the other hand, Hae-ja was doing some digging into Dae-hyun's background and found out he owned a franchise supermarket. She decided to place a large order, asking for it to be delivered to her house. In the end, Dae-hyun himself ended up making the delivery, and when he arrived, he thought about introducing himself formally. However, when he saw Yeonju appear suddenly, he held back. At that moment, Hae-ja handed him a tip, but it was clearly meant as an insult rather than a kind gesture. After he left, Hae-ja scolded Yeonju, warning her that Dae-hyun wasn't a suitable match. Feeling guilty, Yeonju tried to call Dae-hyun to apologize for her mother's behavior, but couldn't reach him. Instead, she decided to visit his supermarket, where Boonhee was managing things. At that moment, Boonhee informed her that Dae-hyun was at the hospital with Satebail. Hearing this, Yeonju immediately went to the hospital and confronted Satebail, asking her not to interfere in her relationship with Dae-hyun. Not only that, Yeonju also explained that she and Dae-hyun had been together for over 2 years, and things had been fine until Satebail came along. In the end, Yeonju even asked her to quit working at the supermarket. Thankfully, Ji-wook arrived and comforted Satebail after the tense encounter. Meanwhile, Gumbi, feeling uneasy, finally told Eunbail about Satebail's hospitalization. Upset about what had happened, Eunbail decided to stand up to the bully girls who had hurt her sister. Later, Eunbail, Eunjo, and Gumbi visited Satebail in the hospital to show their support. Once she had recovered, Satebail decided to quit her job at the supermarket. When Dae-hyun asked why, she simply said she had been thinking about it for a while. He even offered her a raise, but she remained firm in her decision. Upon returning home, Satebail and Eunbail discovered they had been evicted by their landlord. It was revealed that Satebail had fallen victim to a scam from a fake property agency that took her money and left several other tenants in a similar situation. With nowhere else to go, Satebail and Eunbail moved into a small, cramped space. This led to an argument, as Eunbail was embarrassed about going to school from their new place. Frustrated, she suggested Satebail ask Gumbi, who had money, for help. In the end, Satebail stepped outside to clear her mind. Later, Satebail received her final paycheck from the supermarket, and Dae-hyun expressed his gratitude for all she had done to support his business. Sometime later, Dae-hyun's dad, Yeong-pil, was seen busy planning a discounted trip with his friends, not realizing his ex-girlfriend would be at the same destination. At the same time, Dae-hyun hadn't told his mother, Boonhee, that Satebail had quit her job at the supermarket, as he just mentioned she was on sick leave. One day, while Satebail was looking for a job, she walked past Dae-hyun's supermarket and remembered she'd left her journal inside. With no other option, she sneaked in to retrieve it, but had to hide quickly when Dae-hyun came in with an employee to check for returned items. Realizing it was risky, she left before being seen. Later, Satebail got a video call from Eunbail, who was staying at Gumbi's house. With her father away, they had the place to themselves. Later, Satebail visited the fancy home, where Gumbi eagerly talked about her favorite anonymous writer on a website, always being the first to comment on new posts. Little did she know, the writer she admired was actually Dalshik. A few days later, Dae-hyun met Satebail at her old house and gave her some protective gear for biking. At that moment, she didn't tell him the real reason she quit was because of a pressure from Yeonju. Despite this, Satebail soon found a job as a food delivery driver. Meanwhile, Yeonju is seen apologize to Dae-hyun for her mother's interference. However, Dae-hyun quickly mentioned that Satebail had left the supermarket, and with that the two made up. Dae-hyun then invited Yeonju to a classy music event, but she had to go with director Sung-joon, as she was originally invited as his guest. Things took a turn when Gumbi's dad came back unexpectedly and disapproved of her spending time with Satebail, whom he thought had little future. Respecting his wishes, Satebail decided to leave Gumbi's house. On the other hand, Yeonju let Daehyun know that she'd attend the music concert with director Sung-joon, as her work schedule couldn't be changed. During this time, Satebail faced trouble on the job. While delivering food, she was distracted and got into a car accident, causing her to lose the job. The following day, Eunbail secretly hired a woman to pretend to be her mom so she could sign a contract with an idol agency. With the process complete, this meant Eunbail had to move into a dormitory with other potential idol trainees. Back home, Yeongpil and Boonhee got into an argument when he insisted on going on vacation with his friends. During this time, Satebail also had her own worries, as she discovered that Eunbail had taken all her savings. Despite this, Eunbail promised to repay her once she succeeded as an idol. As a result, without money for rent, Satebail stayed at a sauna to get by. Coincidentally, Boonhee was there too and noticed her struggles, feeling sympathy for her. On the other hand, Yeonju attended the musical event and noticed Daehyun sitting alone in the audience, looking lonely. Later that night, Boonhee learned about Satebail's housing troubles and kindly offered her a place to stay. When Daehyun returned home from the musical, he was startled to see a woman in white. Thinking it was a ghost, it was actually Satebail. Confused, he immediately asked why she was there. Fortunately, Boonhee came out and explained that she had invited Satebail to stay with them. Elsewhere, after the musical, Yeonju and director Sung-joon went out for a meal. Sensing her sadness, director Sung-joon asked if something was wrong. At that moment, Yeonju admitted feeling guilty for letting Daehyun attend the event alone. However, director Sung-joon gently advised her not to stay in a relationship if it made her uncomfortable. The next day, just as Daehyun was heading to the supermarket, he received a call from someone selling tickets for another musical show. Unexpectedly, he bought the tickets, planning to invite Yeonju. Later, Yeongpil returned home in high spirits, having saved money for his trip. However, he nearly had a heart attack when he saw Satebail, mistaking her for a ghost. Apologizing to Boonhee for the commotion, Satebail tried to explain. But Boonhee, still annoyed at her husband, made him sleep on the floor as punishment for his trouble. Returning to her room, Satebail kept trying to reach Eunbail but received no replies. The next morning, Daehyun got tickets for another musical concert and happily called Yeonju to invite her. During this time, Boonhee invited Satebail for breakfast and insisted she couldn't leave the house until she found a new place to stay. Unexpectedly, Dasun didn't mind Satebail staying, even though their mother clearly liked having her around. Later, Satebail asked Eunbail's friend, Hyunji, if she knew where Eunbail was. However, Hyunji had promised to keep Eunbail's whereabouts a secret. At the same time, Eunbail is seen introduced to her team members for idol training. Later in the day, Boonhee received a call from a woman interested in buying insurance. As a result, she immediately asked Yeongpil to clean Satebail's room while she met the client at a cafe. Unfortunately, the woman canceled the offer, explaining her daughter had already signed up elsewhere, leaving Boonhee frustrated about losing her time and money. She soon returned home, even more annoyed to find her husband lounging around. Meanwhile, Satebail tried to gather more information about the fraudulent property agency, but ended up in a tense exchange with another victim of the scam. That evening, Daehyun planned to go on a date with Yeonju and asked his dad to watch over the supermarket. When Daehyun got home to take a shower, he was startled to find Satebail there. Upset, he instinctively told her to find a job soon. Not long after, during the date, Daehyun surprised Yeonju by arranging a photo with a famous musical director she admired, even though it embarrassed her. Unexpectedly, from a distance, director Sung-joon watched them. After the musical, Daehyun hoped to spend more time with Yeonju, but she declined, saying she wasn't feeling well and wanted to go home, leaving Daehyun alone. Meanwhile, Man-bok, the scammer, unexpectedly showed up at the property agency office, and Daehyun happened to see him there. Back at the supermarket, Dasun explained that Satebail was staying with them because Man-bok had scammed her out of her savings. Alarmed, Daehyun rushed to confront him. Moments later, Satebail arrived at the supermarket to collect her things, and Dasun informed her about Man-bok's appearance at the agency. Similarly, Satebail immediately decided to go after him. While Manbok was trying to retrieve hidden money from the ceiling in his office and planning to make a quick escape, Daehyun caught him in the act. At the same time, Satebail also arrived there together. Satebail and Daehyun chased him down a narrow alley, but Manbok managed to escape by locking a building door behind him. Disappointed, they returned home empty-handed. Meanwhile, Yeonju, feeling troubled, chose not to go home and met director Sung-joon at a cafe instead. During their conversation, director Sung-joon made a move on her, and they ended up sharing a kiss. The next day, Gumbi was spotted enjoying Dalshik's comics during school hours. She even gave him a generous donation, which left him delighted and surprised. Later, he allowed his fan, who was actually Gumbi, to chat with him on the phone, unaware that they secretly disliked each other. A while later, Satebail asked Jiwook for help in finding Eunbail, worried that her sister might be involved with a shady agency. Her suspicions proved true, as Eunbail's dorm friends were making her do all the chores. However, Eunbail didn't mind as long as she had a chance to debut as an idol. Meanwhile, Daehyun met with his dad's friends to gather information about Manbok. They soon created a surveillance plan, but during their mission, Yongpil and a friend caught the attention of the police, who found their behavior suspicious. Not long after, Daehyun and Satebail staked out an apartment where Manbok's mistress lived. Through this shared experience, Satebail and Daehyun grew closer, and she began to see just how genuinely Daehyun wanted to help her. The next day, Satebail visited the supermarket headquarters to receive an award for surpassing her beverage sales target. Even though she had quit working at Daehyun Supermarket and now worked as a sales promoter, her achievement was still recognized. At the event, she bumped into Yeonju and remembered how disappointed Daehyun had been when Yeonju canceled their date. Satebail then took a moment to talk to Yeonju, asking her not to hurt Daehyun's feelings and reminding her how much he cared for her. After the event, Yeonju hurried to find Daehyun at the supermarket. When she couldn't find him, she decided to go to his house, where Boonhee warmly welcomed her, recognizing her as Daehyun's girlfriend. At that moment, Boonhee introduced herself and invited Yeonju inside. When Daehyun found out Yeonju was visiting his home, he rushed back. At the same time, Satebail returned to the house, greeting Boonhee cheerfully and bringing food to share. Not long after, Boonhee invited everyone, Daehyun, Satebail, and Yeonju, to join her for a meal. Although Daehyun hesitated, Boonhee insisted. During the meal, Boonhee introduced Satebail as a part-time worker at the supermarket. Daehyun then tried to downplay her statement, but Boonhee went on to say she already considered Satebail like a daughter. This made Yeonju jealous, especially when she learned that Satebail was staying in Daehyun's house. Feeling frustrated, Yeonju left quickly. Seeing this, Daehyun ran after her to explain, but she didn't want to hear it. At that moment, Satebail offered to explain everything to Yeonju, but Daehyun assured her he would handle it himself. That day, Dalshik was helping at the supermarket, but he was too focused on calling Gumbi and didn't pay attention to a male customer buying sausages. Later, when Yeonju returned home, she avoided talking to director Sung-joon, who had been waiting for her. During this time, her mother, Hae-ja, noticed her gloomy mood and grew curious. The next day, Yeonju skipped work and left with director Sung-joon. Later, Daehyun gathered his courage and visited Hae-ja to introduce himself as Yeonju's boyfriend. He explained that he wanted to work things out with Yeonju and requested that Hae-ja allow her to make her own choices. However, Hae-ja responded angrily, accusing him of being too bold and hinting she had other plans. Elsewhere, Boonhee was scolded by her boss for not meeting her sales targets. She soon received a call from someone interested in discussing insurance at their home. To her surprise, it was Hae-ja who arranged the meeting, secretly plotting to show Daehyun the social gap between him and Yeonju. Apparently, Hae-ja wanted to make it clear they weren't a suitable match. Boonhee, unaware that Hae-ja was Yeonju's mother, was thrilled about the potential client who could help her achieve her goal of becoming the insurance queen. Even Yongpil unknowingly got pulled into Hae-ja's scheme when she posed as someone seeking a driver. Meanwhile, Satebail, not wanting to burden Boonhee any longer, decided to move out of Daehyun's house. At that moment, Dae-hyun noticed her packing and asked if she had found a new place to stay. Just then, he received a call from the headquarters about a customer complaint concerning expired sausage products at his supermarket. As Dae-hyun reviewed the CCTV footage, he received a message from a customer threatening to report him unless he paid a 3 million won fine, claiming he got food poisoning from the sausages. It appeared the man had intentionally made himself sick to extort money. At the same time, Sae-bail noticed Dal-shik eavesdropping and questioned him about his carelessness at work, which led to Dae-hyun being put in this difficult situation. Dal-shik wanted to help, but admitted it would take him 2 months to save up that much money. Sometime later, Young-pil was delighted with his family's success. Boon-hee was on her way to becoming the top sales agent, and he had landed a job as a driver. However, at the supermarket headquarters, there was a meeting about the expired products sold at Dae-hyun's store. At that moment, Director Sung-joon revealed that a customer was threatening to report the store to the authorities and handed the matter over to Yeonju to resolve. On the other hand, Ji-wook is seen went to an agency to find Eun-bail and discovered that she was training hard with her team. The agency owner, Eun-hwa, mentioned that while Eun-bail was very talented, she was also exhausted because her team members didn't treat her well, which led her to stand up for herself. Hearing this, Ji-wook quickly called Sae-bail to let her know that Eun-bail was with a reputable agency. Unbeknownst to him, a journalist secretly snapped a photo of Ji-wook, though their motives were still unclear. Shortly after, Sae-bail and Dal-shik visited the hospitalized customer who had claimed food poisoning from the sausages. Posing as representatives from the supermarket, they played along with the victim's story and managed to negotiate, lowering the settlement amount. As a result, Sae-bail happily shared the good news with Dae-hyun. Over the next few days, Dae-hyun grew worried since he hadn't heard from Yeonju. During this time, Ji-wook dropped by the supermarket and found Sae-bail, surprised to hear about all she'd been through, including losing her home because of a shady real estate agent, Man-bok. Ji-wook then offered her a place to stay at his apartment, and they were spotted by a journalist while spending time together that evening. Later, during dinner, Ji-wook showed Sae-bail a video of Eun-bail's progress in training, which made her proud. The following day, Sae-bail asked her friend Hyun-woon about her work schedule, but he said it was uncertain as Director Sung-joon was considering letting her go. At the same time, Young-pil started working as a driver and was surprised to find out that Yeonju, his client, worked for the same supermarket chain that Dae-hyun managed. That night, Yeonju met with Dae-hyun and made the painful decision to break up with him, hoping he would find someone who fit better into his life. Heartbroken, Dae-hyun watched as Director Sung-joon arrived to pick up Yeonju. The next day, Sung-joon took Yeonju to a gathering with his old friends, where everyone was happy to see her. During this time, Dae-hyun showed up at the supermarket looking worn out, not yet ready to tell his mother about the breakup. On the other hand, Sae-bail and Ji-wook were having a meal together, with Sae-bail captivated by videos of Eun-bail's training, clearly proud of her sister's hard work. She soon unexpectedly ran into Dae-hyun, who apologized for his behavior. Sae-bail then made the decision to leave her sales promoter job and return to work at Dae-hyun's supermarket, missing her time there and noticing how tired Dae-hyun seemed since she had left. The following day, Young-pil resumed his role as the driver for Yeonju's family. However, rumors began spreading at the supermarket headquarters about Hae-ja being the second largest shareholder, which raised eyebrows since Yeonju was now engaged to Director Sung-joon, a powerful figure in the company. When Dae-hyun heard the rumor from a coworker, he felt betrayed by Yeonju. As a result, he went to her home to confront her, and the meeting was tense. They argued over Dae-hyun's lie about Sae-bail. Not stopping there, the situation worsened when Dae-hyun saw his father, Young-pil, who worked as a driver, arriving with Hae-ja. Dae-hyun was shocked and felt as though his family had been deeply disrupted by Yeonju. Even Young-pil was taken aback to learn Yeonju had been Dae-hyun's girlfriend. Even worse, Boon-hee, who was delivering insurance documents to Hae-ja's house, witnessed the tension. After wrapping up the paperwork, she shared her thoughts on relationships, pointing out that love, not social class, was what kept Yeonju and Dae-hyun together. Despite this, she was then surprised to catch her husband doing household chores for Hae-ja. At her office, Boon-hee received heartfelt congratulations from her colleagues for achieving her goal as the insurance queen. But her joy quickly dimmed after learning the truth about Haeja and Yeonju. Yeongpil, too, started reconsidering his role as Haeja's driver and eventually chose to resign. Before leaving her house, he played a harmless prank on Haeja to express his disapproval of how she had treated his son. Back home, both Boonhee and Yeongpil reflected on their mistakes, and Yeongpil firmly announced that he would no longer work for Haeja. On the other hand, Saebile persuaded Jiwook to find the address of Eunbile's dormitory. After getting the address, she went there secretly and felt a wave of relief upon seeing Eunbile looking happy and healthy. Saebile was touched as Eunbile expressed how much she missed her. However, Eunbile soon noticed her sister hiding, and they ended up having a heart-to-heart conversation at a nearby restaurant. Eunbile then apologized and asked for some time to prove herself, saying her dreams were closer than ever. The next morning, Saebile woke up to find Jiwook's manager at the house. The manager explained the need to protect Jiwook's public image and politely asked Saebile to leave his home to avoid any rumors. Unsure of where to go, Saebile ran into Daehyun, who kindly urged her to come back to his house. After she left his place, Boonhee, who had grown fond of her, seemed sad. Not long after, Yeongpil, feeling guilty about the strain between Daehyun and Yeonju, felt a bit relieved seeing his son's renewed determination. Seeking some peace, Daehyun visited the beach, reflecting on his memories with Yeonju. Meanwhile, Saebile was deeply moved by Boonhee's gesture of treating her like family and inviting her to stay as long as she needed. When Saebile visited the supermarket, Dalshik informed her that Yeonju had broken up with Daehyun. Concerned, Saebile decided to find Daehyun and offer her support. At the same time, Dalshik received a call from Gumbi. As they chatted, their identities almost slipped, but the call ended in a playful argument, with Gumbi accusing Dalshik of being a bit weird. On the other hand, Jiwook was upset with his manager for making Saebile leave without consulting him. Yet, he understood the need to avoid rumors that could harm many people's careers, including his own. That evening, Daehyun drank heavily and opened up to Saebile about his feelings for Yeonju and how she had hurt not only him, but also his family. Moments later, Saebile helped him home as he drifted in and out of consciousness. During this time, she remembered a moment from 10 years ago when Daehyun had once helped her during a jiu-jitsu training session, a memory that sparked her feelings for him. That night, Saebile briefly considered kissing him, but decided not to. To her surprise, in his sleep, Daehyun pulled her closer, almost as if he didn't want her to leave. In his drunken dreams, he muttered about getting arrested by the police for expired food, making Saebile smile. She was happy to be by his side and chose to stay the night. The next morning, Daehyun woke up, shocked to find his face covered with doodles drawn by Saebile. Additionally, she had left him a note saying she'd be at the supermarket. At work, Saebile seemed cheerful and radiant. Concerned for her well-being, Jiwook called and soon arrived at the supermarket. Saebile, however, was busy and asked him to lend a hand with her tasks. Later, Daehyun arrived, looking annoyed as he struggled to scrub off the doodles on his face. Frustrated by the unexpected meeting and Saebile's busy schedule, Jiwook left disappointed, hoping for more attention from her. As Daehyun walked around the store, he noticed the instant noodle section had been rearranged by Saebile. Though initially annoyed, he listened to her reasoning and agreed with her idea. They also discussed how cleanliness and order could help improve the store's declining sales. Saebile even scolded Daehyun for letting his personal issues affect the store's business. Impressed with her dedication, Daehyun handed Saebile an ID badge, officially promoting her to assistant manager. He shared with her that she was in fact the very first person he had registered for insurance. During a break, Saebile noticed that Daehyun had changed his phone wallpaper and asked if it was true that he had broken up with Yeonju. Learning the truth, she teased him lightheartedly, reminding him that she would always be there for him as someone he could lean on. Meanwhile, at the supermarket headquarters, Yeonju was discussing an upcoming promotion campaign featuring Jiwook. The following day, Daehyun was proud of his mom, Boonhee, who had recently been crowned the insurance queen. Curious about her new client, he suggested giving them a thank you gift. However, Boonhee quickly changed the topic. That evening, When Dae-hyun returned to the supermarket, Sae-byeol was thrilled, feeling that her dream of working alongside Dae-hyun had finally come true. Their chat made Dae-hyun wonder how she had known he was hiring. With no other option, Sae-byeol shyly admitted that she had observed him for a long time, through different seasons, and one day, she happened to spot a job posting. She also asked when Dae-hyun had made her ID badge, as he wasn't initially eager to hire her. Hearing this, Dae-hyun explained that he made the badge after she earned recognition as the best employee. Meanwhile, Young-pil's friends invited him to a discounted island trip, but he declined. Later, he received a message from Dae-hyun about wanting to give a gift to his mom's client. However, Young-pil revealed that the client was Hae-ja and advised Dae-hyun not to ask his mom to cancel the insurance, as she had worked hard to secure it. Despite this, Dae-hyun called his mom, apologized for any trouble, and promised to work even harder. Elsewhere, Dal-shik was calling Gumbi, trying to impress her and eager to meet his fan in person. Gumbi, equally excited, prepared herself to meet her idol. Meanwhile, Ji-wook was seen practicing at the gym when his manager reminded him of a shooting schedule for the supermarket campaign. Apparently, Ji-wook specifically requested to film at Sae-byeol's branch. Hearing this, Sung-joon initially refused, but Yeonju allowed it to enhance the project's appeal. Not long after, Sae-byeol and Dae-hyun posed happily in their new uniforms for photos, capturing the fresh, welcoming look of the store. Just then, Yeonju arrived to request permission for an upcoming project, and Dae-hyun quickly agreed, seeing the benefit it would bring to his supermarket. Meanwhile, Dal-shik and Gumbi, both eagerly awaiting their meeting, wore their ID badges with pride. To their shock, they discovered that their online crush was actually their real-life enemy. Heartbroken, they each went their separate ways, Dal-shik withdrawing from work and isolating himself, while Gumbi locked herself in her room, refusing to come out. During this time, Eun-byeol and her friends were rehearsing for their upcoming debut performance. After the rehearsal, Ji-wook met with Eun-byeol to offer her words of encouragement, sharing how proud he was of her journey with the idol group Fancy Girl. Later, as the promotional event at Dae-hyun supermarket began, Sung-joon expressed his gratitude to Dae-hyun for allowing the filming. During the shoot, Ji-wook excitedly told Sae-byeol that Eun-byeol would be debuting with Fancy Girl. Meanwhile, Ji-wook, having heard about Dae-hyun and Yeonju's breakup, suspected that Dae-hyun might have been using Sae-byeol to make Yeonju jealous. Boldly, he confessed to Dae-hyun that he had real feelings for Sae-byeol. As a result, before filming resumed, Ji-wook went for makeup, and Dae-hyun playfully added an extra layer of powder to his face. Once filming started, Ji-wook took on the role of a supermarket employee, drawing a large crowd eager to take photos with him. At that moment, Dae-hyun felt a bit left out, noticing that none of the visitors wanted a picture with him. In the midst of all this, Dal-shik and Gumbi were both struggling with their newfound heartbreak. Dal-shik isolated himself, neglecting his work, while Gumbi refused to leave her room despite her father's efforts to make her get out. The next day, Young-pil invited Boonhee to dinner at a restaurant, purposely avoiding the supermarket to steer clear of Yeonju. Meanwhile, at the supermarket, Dae-hyun enthusiastically showcased a mixed instant noodles combo, a favorite among customers. However, the area manager, Bae-han, wasn't impressed and argued that it didn't align with the supermarket's promotional theme. This disagreement sparked a heated exchange between Dae-hyun and Bae-han, with Dae-hyun insisting he wasn't a corporate employee and shouldn't be controlled by Bae-han. Not only that, Bae-han's rude attitude also angered Sae-byeol, and her fierce reaction seemed to intimidate him. Elsewhere, Yeonju was having a meal with Sung-joon when she received word of the commotion at the supermarket. She quickly stepped in to resolve the issue and apologized for Bae-han's behavior. Later, as Boonhee and Young-pil were leaving, they overheard Yeonju on a phone call with a friend, and her arrogant tone left them both unsettled. Back at the supermarket, Sae-byeol, working at the cashier, noticed a high school textbook left behind by a customer. Since she hadn't graduated high school yet, she decided to study from the book. A little while later, Dae-hyun spotted her reading and asked if she had thought about continuing her education. That evening, Sae-byeol encouraged Dae-hyun to head home first, but as he stood outside the supermarket, he unexpectedly ran into Jiwook, who had come by to see Sae-Bile as well. The two ended up in a friendly competition, racing back to the supermarket to be with her. The following day, Sae-Bile asked Dae-hyun for half a day off so she could go with Jiwook to watch her younger sister Eun-bile's performance. She then brought a bouquet of flowers to cheer Eun-bile on, but Eun-bile's foster mother suddenly appeared and hurried her inside, leaving Sae-Bile feeling hurt and left out. Not long after, despite the emotional start, Fancy Girl's performance went well, until Eun-bile stumbled and got nosebleed. Still, she didn't give up and finished the performance, gaining widespread attention as the moment went viral in the media. Later, Eun-bile called Sae-Bile to apologize for any worry she had caused, promising to work hard for a better life. However, after her debut, Eun-bile ran into the bully girls, who initially planned to extort money from her. But when they discovered she knew Jiwook, they changed their minds, demanding an introduction to him and promising to delete embarrassing photos of her. Apparently, they had managed to snap a photo of Jiwook and Eun-bile together. Meanwhile, Dae-hyun hadn't seen Dal-shik in a while and decided to check on him, only to find his friend weak and nearly fainting. Acting quickly, he took Dal-shik to the supermarket to get some food and help him recover. Some time later, thanks to Jiwook's promotion, Dae-hyun's supermarket began to attract more customers eager to try the new menu items. Eun-bile even stopped by the supermarket to see Sae-bile, but her mood soured when she received an old, embarrassing photo from the bully girls, who were now blackmailing her. Sae-bile was outraged when she found out, especially after the girls called Eun-bile to demand money. The next day, despite her concerns for Eun-bile, Sae-bile went to the supermarket to meet Dae-hyun. She was moved to see that he had set up a cozy study space just for her, complete with books and learning materials to support her in continuing her education. Meanwhile, Yeonju learned the real reason Dae-hyun had left the corporate office. He had taken the blame for a past project mistake she had made. Feeling regretful, she went to the supermarket to find Dae-hyun and hugged him, expressing her desire for him to return to his old position. At the same time, Sae-bile watched the scene, saddened by the possibility of Dae-hyun leaving. The next day, Yeonju met with Jo-gyuri, the franchise headquarters leader, to discuss Dae-hyun's unrecognized work from 3 years ago. She also proposed hosting a meal event with Dae-hyun, which Jo-gyuri gladly agreed to. Meanwhile, Sae-bile continued to worry about Eun-bile's situation, remembering Dae-hyun's advice not to resort to violence to solve problems, and resolved to handle it calmly. The following day, Sae-bile met with Eun-hwa, the owner of the agency managing her sister. But things took a turn when Eun-bile arrived and urged her sister to leave. She was still hiding the fact that she used surrogate parents to enter the agency, and she didn't want Eun-hwa to find out. This led to an argument between the sisters, which was secretly photographed by Yuna, a reporter from Dispatch who had previously been following Jiwook. In the end, the photo quickly became the topic of gossip. Soon after, the bully girls showed up, and Sae-bile told Eun-bile to go while she handled them. This time, however, Sae-bile held back and allowed the bully girls to confront her without fighting back. Meanwhile, Baehan paid Dae-hyun a visit at the supermarket, inviting him to a dinner with corporate executives, but Dae-hyun didn't seem too thrilled. Moments later, he was shocked to see Sae-bile return with visible bruises. He tried to help her with her injuries, but it was clear that she was emotionally shaken too, feeling like she had failed to protect Eun-bile and fulfill her responsibilities as a guardian. On the other hand, Dal-shik visited a game center to refresh his mind, only to find Gumbi there as well. Despite this, they engaged in a friendly competition, determined not to lose to each other, which unexpectedly brought them closer. Later that night, they went to a bar and opened up to each other. During their conversation, Dal-shik confessed that he felt like he had found his soulmate in Gumbi. The next day, Dae-hyun urged Sae-bile to report the bully girls to the police, but she declined, saying she had come to terms with them. At the same time, Boon-hee, noticing Sae-bile's rough condition, encouraged Dae-hyun to attend the dinner with the franchise executives as a way to stay focused on his work. The following morning, Gumbi and Dal-shik woke up to realize they had spent the night together at Dal-shik's place. Embarrassed, they argued, each blaming the other for the situation. In response, Dal-shik explained that Gumbi had been very drunk, so he brought her home to rest safely. Unexpectedly, This incident sparked romantic feelings between them. Sometime later, Daehyun met Yeonju and Jo-gyuri at an upscale restaurant for the dinner invitation. At that moment, Yeonju suggested to Jo-gyuri that Daehyun should be appointed as a consultant to represent all the branch offices, given his experience both at corporate and in the field. Fortunately, Jo-gyuri agreed and even presented Daehyun with a gift to show appreciation for his hard work. The next day, Yeonju visited the supermarket to inform Daehyun about the new consultant role, which would involve representing all the branch offices. Daehyun was reluctant, feeling that there were others more qualified for the job. In the end, when she couldn't persuade him, Yeonju asked Boon-hee for help in convincing him. At the same time, a police officer visited Sae-byeol about a past stalking incident and requested CCTV footage from Daehyun's supermarket. The bully girls saw this and assumed Sae-byeol had reported them. In retaliation, they leaked all of Eun-byeol's old photos on social media, causing an uproar. As a result, Ji-wook got entangled in the news, rumored to be linked to Eun-byeol, and things spiraled further when Eun-hwa exposed the truth about Eun-byeol's use of surrogate parents. Yoona, who had been following Ji-wook closely for gossip, was frustrated because the bully girls had leaked the story first. To make matters worse, the bully girls found an old video of Sae-byeol in a fight, which tarnished Eun-byeol's reputation even further. Daehyun, hearing about the gossip, rushed to support Sae-byeol and advised her not to run from the issue. That night, Sae-byeol decided to confront the bully girls, tracking them down to an empty building. Her confidence and fighting skills intimidated them, and they finally handed over their phones containing photos and videos of her and Eun-byeol. Later, Sae-byeol met with Yoona, revealing the truth behind the events and clearing up the misunderstandings. Since she knew Yoona had been watching Ji-wook, Sae-byeol asked for her help in exposing the real story to the public and clearing Eun-byeol's name. After a while, Eun-byeol finally met with Sae-byeol, and they both apologized, mending their relationship. They soon returned together to Boon-hee's home, where they received a warm welcome. Meanwhile, Yoona had a chance meeting with Ji-wook, during which she learned that his bond with Sae-byeol came from gratitude toward her father, who had once been his mentor. Sometime later, with Yoona's article clearing up the rumors, Sae-byeol and Eun-byeol were relieved as the negative gossip around Eun-byeol finally disappeared. As time passed, Daehyun returned to his work at the corporate office. Ji-wook, preparing to leave for work abroad, visited Sae-byeol to say goodbye. At the same time, despite Daehyun's previous breakup with Yeonju, she was visibly unhappy seeing him grow closer to Sae-byeol. During this time, Daehyun gifted Sae-byeol a bouquet of flowers, while Yeonju confided in her mother, expressing her wish to rekindle her relationship with Daehyun, even though she knew her mother might disapprove. Meanwhile, Eun-byeol received a call from Sae-byeol, who was at the supermarket, and mentioned that Eun-hwa wanted to meet them both and invite Eun-byeol back to rejoin Fancy Girl. Around the same time, Sung-joon is seen assigned Daehyun the task of managing a franchise branch. He also sought Yeonju's help in convincing the branch owner, but things went poorly, and they were kicked out by the owner. In the struggle, Daehyun sprained his wrist trying to shield Yeonju. Meanwhile, Sae-byeol noticed that Dasun was acting suspiciously at the supermarket, taking money from sales and leaving without paying for items. Elsewhere, Yongpil was dropping off his friends for an island trip, only to realize they had gone to the wrong airport. Disappointed he couldn't join them, Yongpil later received a surprise call from his ex-girlfriend, Jang-mi. At the same time, Boon-hee received a call from Hae-ja, who wanted to meet her. Dal-shik, struggling to focus on his comics due to his thoughts about Gum-bi, decided to go out to clear his mind and ended up running into her. After hearing about his creative struggles, Gum-bi promised to help him brainstorm new ideas for his comic. Meanwhile, Sae-byeol was worried about Daehyun's injured hand, but he brushed off her concern, saying he was fine even though he was running a fever. He then encouraged her to go home and rest, especially since she had a special high school exam the next day. Yet later that night, Sae-byeol felt uneasy, realizing she had something important to tell him. When she returned to the supermarket, she was shocked to find Daehyun unconscious. The next day, Sae-byeol took her exam smoothly, her hard work and intelligence showing through. Meanwhile, Yeonju visited Daehyun in the hospital and suggested to Boon-hee that they should transfer the management of Daehyun's supermarket to the central company to lessen his workload. Yeonju later shared this plan with Sae-byeol, explaining that it was for Daehyun's benefit and to support his dreams. Sae-byeol tried to understand, even though she knew Daehyun might resist. When returned home from the hospital, Daehyun expressed his desire to leave the corporate office and focus on his supermarket instead. But, to his surprise, Sae-byeol asked him to consider the opposite. At the corporate office, Yeonju instructed Baehan to take over managing Daehyun's supermarket and also requested that he dismiss Sae-byeol from her position. That evening, Daehyun opened up to Sae-byeol, sharing his feelings, but she remained silent. The next day, Yeongpil was shocked to encounter Jangmi at the supermarket. Apparently, before leaving for China, Jangmi asked Yeongpil to find her best friend, who turned out to be Boon-hee. Yeongpil, however, admitted he hadn't seen Boon-hee in nearly 40 years. Unexpectedly, Daehyun and Sae-byeol arrived just in time to overhear the conversation between Yeongpil and Jangmi. As a result, Daehyun felt disappointed, especially upon discovering that Jangmi was his father's ex-girlfriend. After urging Jangmi to leave, Yeongpil explained his past relationship with her to Daehyun and Sae-byeol, though Daehyun still felt upset. Later, he and Sae-byeol headed home, and Daehyun couldn't help but feel sorry for his hard-working mother, Boon-hee. As he cannot get sleep, Daehyun invited Sae-byeol to share some instant noodles, but their plan was interrupted when Boon-hee woke up and decided to watch TV with them. The next day, after some thought, Boon-hee and Daehyun decided to go ahead and sign the partnership contract with the central franchise office. To win favor, Yeonju gifted Boon-hee a fancy leather bag. Before leaving, she taunted Sae-byeol, hinting at her intentions to win Daehyun back by reminding her how precious he was to her. Meanwhile, Dalshik and Gumbi spent time at a gaming center, bonding over their competitive attempts to beat the high score. Unexpectedly, their shared enthusiasm only deepened their connection. At the same time, Sae-byeol headed to the police station, where they had finally caught Manbok, who had been scamming people in property deals. The victims, including Sae-byeol, would receive their deposits back. But Sae-byeol was especially concerned about the other tenants who needed to find new places to live. After leaving the station, Daehyun surprised her with a pizza to celebrate her success on the high school exam. He also mentioned that Baehan would be taking over as the new store manager in his place. However, they were both surprised when Gumbi and Dalshik showed up, eager to share the news of their blossoming relationship. Over the weekend, Boon-hee decided to give the supermarket a thorough cleaning before handing it over to the central office. While there, she received a call from a potential insurance client, and Jangmi also arrived at the supermarket, bringing a letter she had written for Boon-hee decades ago. Things became tense when Boon-hee unexpectedly returned, prompting Yeongpil to hide Jangmi in the warehouse. At that moment, Sae-byeol and Daehyun did their best to keep Boon-hee from entering, but her suspicions grew. Eventually, Boon-hee discovered Jangmi in the warehouse and was shocked to realize that Yeongpil had been involved with her in the past. Unfortunately, their reunion didn't go well, leaving Boon-hee wishing she could forget the encounter entirely. She then tried to calm herself at a nearby bar, where Yeonju, hearing she was drinking soju, offered to join her. Later that night, a heavily drunk Boon-hee returned home, brought by Yeonju, who had helped her. Boon-hee seemed grateful for all Yeonju had done for her son, and she asked Daehyun to accompany Yeonju back to her place. The next day, Boon-hee urged Daehyun to meet with Yeonju and try to reconcile. Soon after, Yeongpil arrived and tried to lift Boon-hee's spirits by giving her tulips and the 10 million won he had received from Jangmi. At the same time, Jangmi remained at the supermarket, hoping to explain to Boon-hee why she had disappeared years ago. That same day, Daehyun had a heart-to-heart conversation with Yeonju, who apologized for her past actions. Daehyun made it clear that he was only interested in being good colleagues, leaving their romantic history in the past. When he returned home, Daehyun found Sae-byeol waiting for him. However, he soon got into an argument with his mother, who wanted him to resume dating Yeonju, thinking it would secure his future. Daehyun, still hurt by the insults from Yeonju's family, asked his mother to stop bringing her up, expressing his frustration and need to move forward. In the morning, Sae-bile grew frustrated with Baehan when he tried to remove the study desk that Dae-hyun had set up for her, making her feel as though her memories with Dae-hyun at the supermarket were slowly fading away. As a result, after her shift, Sae-bile visited Boon-hee, who had been resting in bed all morning, and shared her thoughts about Dae-hyun's dreams for a better life. Later, Sae-bile met with Dae-hyun and convinced him to apologize to his mother, urging him to continue being a good son. Unexpectedly, that night, Sae-bile quietly decided to leave Dae-hyun's family without saying goodbye. The next day, Dae-hyun went to Sae-bile's room, only to find it empty except for a letter. In it, Sae-bile explained that she wanted to end things between them so that he could pursue his career freely, just as she wanted to chase her own dreams. Not long after, Sae-bile found work at a flower garden, where she was diligent and hardworking. At that moment, one of her coworkers introduced her to his son. However, she witnessed the son being bullied that night and bravely stood up for him, confronting the bullies with strength and confidence. Meanwhile, Dal-shik told his father about having a girlfriend, but his father thought he was just making it up. Knowing this, Gumbi decided to help out and invited Dal-shik to take her to meet his father. The next day, they headed to Dal-shik's hometown, where Gumbi was surprised to discover that Dal-shik's family was incredibly wealthy. His father even used a helicopter to water his rice fields. After a quick visit, they made their way to the helicopter landing spot, where Dal-shik suddenly spotted someone in the distance. He then asked Gumbi to confirm if it was really Sae-bile, and once they were sure, Dal-shik immediately let Dae-hyun know where she was. Without hesitation, Dae-hyun rushed over to find her. When he arrived, Dae-hyun and Sae-bile shared a heartfelt conversation about their future. Dae-hyun promised to wait for her and help her heal from her past struggles. He also reminded her of the time, 10 years ago, when he had saved her, showing that he had always cared for her. The next day, Sae-bile was offered a permanent job with benefits, including insurance, which reminded her of Dae-hyun and how he had first set up insurance for her. Meanwhile, Dae-hyun invited Yeonju to dinner to thank her for her efforts in making him a company consultant. During their conversation, Dae-hyun surprised Yeonju by announcing his decision to quit the corporate office, leading Yeonju to let go of her feelings for him. Later, she asked her mother to join her for a casual meal by the roadside and shared her decision to return to the United States to work for a promising startup. The next day, Hae-ja, reluctant to see Yeonju leave, went to Boon-hee, hoping she could convince Dae-hyun to return to the company. In the process, Hae-ja accidentally revealed that Dae-hyun had originally left the headquarters to take responsibility for mistakes Yeonju had made. This revelation left Boon-hee disappointed, realizing that Hae-ja had altered Dae-hyun's path for her daughter's sake. At the supermarket, Dae-hyun posted an opening for a part-time position. When he returned home, he shared with his parents that Sae-bile had left. At that moment, Boon-hee recalled something she had said that might have hurt Sae-bile, yet she still wished for Dae-hyun to work as an executive at the company for a more secure future. Dae-hyun, however, expressed that he found happiness in a simpler life, much like his parents. After he left, Boon-hee felt moved by his words, and Young-pil explained that he too had discovered happiness in the life they led. Days passed, and Dae-hyun worked tirelessly. Eventually, Dal-shik came to relieve him at the store. At the same time, Sae-bile received exciting news that she had passed her special high school exam. That evening, she went to Boon-hee's house to retrieve her exam result, which had been mailed there. But as Boon-hee and Young-pil returned unexpectedly, Sae-bile quickly hid. During this time, Boon-hee spotted Sae-bile's letter and felt a wave of nostalgia, missing her deeply. Hearing Boon-hee and Young-pil talk, Sae-bile overheard that Dae-hyun had left the corporate office, a revelation that surprised her and made her come out of hiding. As a result, Boon-hee was overjoyed to see Sae-bile again and apologize for her past mistakes. When Dae-hyun returned from work, Sae-bile paid him a visit, and they reunited, both admitting how much they had missed each other. At the same time, Dal-shik finally finished his comic series with Gumbi by his side, proudly reaching the final episode. In the end, Sae-bile accepted Dae-hyun's feelings, while Boon-hee continued to thrive in her insurance career, receiving multiple awards. Eun-bile, too, flourished in her career as an idol, winning the hearts of fans everywhere. Moral lesson from the story: sometimes, managing a store is easier than managing your love life. Just when you think it's stocked, someone changes the shelves. And remember, whether it's romance or ramen, always check the expiration date.